if a private landowner requests of the council to be annexed into the city of Mesquite, is that something that you would vote in favor of or vote against?
Yeah, it depends entirely on the situation.
Okay.
If the city can benefit from having this done, then that's super. But all too often, it's once again one of those kind of deals. How come doesn't that particular developer want to deal with the regulatory agency in Lincoln County? I mean, why do they want to come down here and deal with us? Do they want us to put ourselves on the line for water, which is pretty much what I think in some of the situations I've seen, or some other thing? And it's not to the city of Mesquite's benefit, and definitely not the taxpayers of the city of Mesquite, to do that frequently. So I'd look at every single situation. Anybody can apply for annexation that would like to. It needs to be seriously considered. But I want to know what can they do for us, not what they can do for them, and this is at least a win-win situation.
Okay. Getting back to the budget a little bit, and we just finished the budget process, and if we are not going to increase taxes, then it means during your watch as a city councilman, if elected, you will be on board for the next batch of looking at more budget cuts. One of the questions that comes up is things like the city's contribution to nonprofits, to the arts, to nonprofit agencies in town, to some of those agencies. Would you vote in favor of cutting those payments or those donations to things like the arts and some of those nonprofits? Where do you draw the line?
What I would like to see is the answer to the question here. What do I tell the man who I just sent home with a pink slip, who just lost his job? How do I explain that I gave X dollars to whatever? I think that's the tough one. Shared sacrifices here. Here's the other part of that. I think most of those entities have to be self-supporting as best as they possibly can, but I simply cannot reconcile having to lay people off and giving money to another entity. As soon as somebody comes up with an answer to that, then I'll sleep much better.
Okay. When you talk about other budget areas, outsourcing has been brought up quite a bit. One of the things that has been suggested is the possibility of outsourcing our ambulance service, particularly the ambulance service of transporting patients from our hospital to other hospitals, which is, we're basically using our service to take dollars out of Mesquite. What is your position on outsourcing things like ambulance services?
You have to look at every situation. They had a long, lengthy discussion with the guys at the fire department, and I am a former professional firefighter, which kind of makes me prejudiced in this situation. We have the most outstanding bunch of guys I have ever seen. They're doing a very tough job. They've trained themselves very, very hard in some other stuff. They're working real hard to try to come up with ideas themselves about how to do this stuff. Raising some of their fees, for instance. Now, getting specifically back to outsourcing, there are areas where we can outsource. To just say blanket that they won't work is nonsense, because they do work. But we need to take a good hard look and balance the amount of service that we're getting versus the savings that can happen. Is the savings really there? Are there ways for us to work that within our own system? It's again an opportunity to think outside of City Hall and do something different than we've done before. Am I opposed to outsourcing? No. Am I blanketly for it? No. We've got to look at each and every situation, make a decision based on the merits.
Can you give an example of something that you think could be outsourced painlessly?
Okay, painlessly, that's difficult. I was proud of the situation where they did the other day with the clerk not outsourcing the. It's late in the afternoon and my brain's going away. The typing of the minutes and stuff. That was a pretty good move. I'd like to look at some other situations. There's just too many places, and where I'd like to go for those ideas though are the departments themselves, the guys who are doing the situation. Somebody's sitting out there doing something, saying, you know what? If I formed this little company, I could contract with the city to do the job I'm doing right here, and I could do it this much better, and everybody else would be better off. I want to hear from those guys with those ideas. That's where some real innovation can happen.
Okay. For the last couple of minutes, talk a little bit. This is your chance to talk to the voters of Mesquite and make your plea for why you believe you are the right choice for the City Council of Mesquite.
Okay. I decided to run because my wife made me. You remember Flip Wilson, the devil made me do it? Well, I didn't mean that way, honey, but she told me I had to quit throwing stuff at the television and screaming and yelling if I didn't go do something about it, and it's time to do stuff about it. I was born in the greatest, finest, most wonderful country with all of our flaws that ever existed. Nothing like this has ever happened before. I see the experiment in real trouble, and the real trouble comes from the fact that people like me have been too happy to scream at the television and not do and not get out and do something about it for too long. There's a difference also between fault and responsibility. It's not my fault that the government has gotten out of control and spent so much money and taken so much control of our lives, but it is my responsibility because it happened on my watch. I wasn't paying enough attention. It's time for me to be a better citizen than I have been, and I'm doing the best I can with what I've got. I think I've got some pretty good ideas. I think I've had some experiences as far as business goes, lived through some hard times, did some things that I'm now proud of, but I sure didn't like going through when I went through them. And from that I learned what I think needs to be learned. I don't sound very humble right now, but those things do tend to humble you. And if I'm given the opportunity to do this, I really, really want to give back at least as good a country, if not better, than I got when I was born here. And I think I can do that by serving my city.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Black.
Thank you, sir.